Time now for Morning Rounds with CBS News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jon LaPook and CBS News contributor Dr. Narula. First up, the ongoing battle against Zika. The FDA is now advising testing for Zika in all donated blood.
Infection numbers continue to rise. Most are still in the northern Miami neighborhoods of Wynwood and Miami Beach, but a new case was confirmed this week in Pinellas County, more than 200 miles from the original Zika zone. This was scary because I think we've all thought it's isolated, and now we're seeing, or are we seeing it spread?
I don't think that any of us are going to be surprised next month when we're sitting here talking about cases in other states. This is something we expected to happen, that this will in fact spread, and we will see locally transmitted cases in the Southeast, in particular in the Gulf Coast states. Projected models, however, really forecast that the primary source of locally transmitted infections is going to be Florida, with it in September about 300 to 400 cases. In some of these other states, numbers look more in the range of 3 to 16 cases. Florida really remains the epicenter because the Aedes mosquito is found in high concentrations there. The climate is favorable for this mosquito, and people are traveling back and forth from South and Latin America where Zika is prevalent. I think the big question is, and we've talked about this, is what about the cases we're not picking up because we're not looking for them? This is a disease that's asymptomatic, and if you're not screening, you may not find it.
Right. John, spraying is still ongoing, and the CDC's staying firm in their recommendations. Do we need to be more vigilant as it starts to get colder in the fall?
Well, I think certainly we cannot take anything for granted. I've been trying to ask around the CDC, all these public health experts, say, show me the maps that tell us what happens to the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes as the cold weather comes in. And in general, it tends to go down. By December, it's quite low, although it's still there in pockets in the south and in Houston area or in southern Texas or in southern Florida. But there's a big asterisk here. Yeah. For one thing, this is the warmest year on record. We have climate change. You know, people talk about the effects of climate change. This is one possibility. It could be a longer mosquito season. So these projections, I take them really with a huge, gigantic grain of salt because there's so much we don't know.
What is Congress doing, though? I mean, we continue to hear from the Governor Rick Scott, say we need help. When they get back in session, do you think they'll make it a top priority?
If they don't, then there's something wrong. I don't know.
There's already something wrong.
Exactly.
It is really hard to imagine how there has not been a penny of new funding from Congress, even though the request was made back in February.
This is a public health emergency lasting about 7 months with no appropriate funding for this. You have states like Florida scrambling to get funds so that they can fight what seem to be emerging cases every day. And you have the CDC director saying that he's fighting this battle with one hand tied behind his back. We desperately need funds to work on vaccine research, educational campaigns, healthcare access for pregnant women, mosquito abatement. There's so many facets to this disease that we need research for and funding for. And I think that, unfortunately, we keep seeing these images of babies born with microcephaly in South America. But pretty soon, those are not going to be images that we see from a world far away. It's going to be babies born to women that we know, friends and family members. And it will be heartbreaking when that happens because we will have had the ability to do something and we didn't.
Yeah. We already blew the opportunity to get ahead of it. And now the question is, how good are we going to be at catching up?
All right. Moving on, one man is seeing normally 1 year after the most extensive face transplant surgery in history. John has more on that.
Mississippi firefighter Pat Hardison was 27 in 2001 when the roof of a burning house collapsed on him.
There was no recognition.
Fellow first responder Jimmy Neal remembers seeing his friend right after the accident.
I had never seen anybody burn that bad that was still alive.
For 14 years, Hardison battled pain, stares from strangers, and a loss of hope.
How you feeling?
But 1 year ago, doctors at NYU Langone Medical Center replaced Hardison's face with that of a 26-year-old cycling accident victim named David Rodabaugh.
Now I'm just the average guy walking down the street. You know, people they can look at me and tell something's happened, but they would never look at me and think that I had a face transplant.
Have you ever been so happy to be ignored?
No, I can promise you that.
It's still almost unbelievable to me that we can do this.
The head of plastic surgery, Dr. Eduardo Rodriguez, told Hardison he had a 50-50 chance of surviving the surgery, which took 26 hours.
Although we added chin bone, the cheekbones, and the nasal bones, the remaining portions of his facial skeleton are what build his face, and that's why he looks so similar to his children.
So his underlying bone structure is almost like a scaffolding?
Correct.
Hardison's oldest daughter, Allison, wondered why do it at all, until she said goodbye to her dad just before the operation.
He said, I won't have to wear a ball cap, and I won't have to wear my sunglasses. I'll look normal whenever I get to walk you down the aisle. And that right then pretty much sealed the deal for me.
Some kind of potatoes, normal has come a reality over the year. Because it wasn't normal was something I never thought I'd see again.
And normal never felt so special.
It really is a medical miracle, John. I mean, what's it like to watch his progress over the past year?
Well, I was completely and utterly blown away. In full disclosure, I'm a professor of medicine at NYU Langone Medical Center, where this technological tour de force was done by a team of more than 100 people. And when I first met him just a few days ago, and the first words out of my mouth were, "I've got to say it, you look good." This big smile. It looked amazing.
So interesting that they use the underlying face as the scaffolding, too.
Yes, exactly. And Dr. Eduardo Rodriguez, who did the surgery, said they kind of tear the face over it. They push it down. And that's why he still looks like his kids, because the underlying facial structure is what provides a lot of what somebody looks like. So he's sort of a blend of the person who gave the donation of the face and what he used to be.
It's a great story. Well, finally this morning, coffee. Some people can't make it out the front door without a cup or two, while others won't touch a drop of the stuff. Well, a new study by Scientific Reports reveals how genetics may play a role in our body's ability to consume caffeine. Some people have a variation in a particular gene called PDSS2, making them less able to break down caffeine so it stays in their bodies longer. So they don't have to drink as much coffee as most of us to get the same caffeine hit.
I don't have the gene, for sure.
Well, it's kind of a fun fact, but aside from Starbucks, who might use it to figure out where to put their stores, it's also interesting because I think more and more we're seeing this personalized medicine, not just caffeine, but how do people individually metabolize different medicines? And it might help figure out, how much medicine do I give, or which ones do I give to somebody?
And it's just amazing that all these things we think of as our personality, our habits, are actually genetic.
Programmed into us.
Right.
Yeah,
It's not our fault, is what I take away from it.
Exactly.
All right, I want to get me some of that PDSS2. Doctors Jon LaPook and Tara Narula, thanks.